Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies, where we explore all things cinema. I want to welcome back to the show Alicia Malone, who is a host on Turner Classic Movies and an authority on classic, independent, and foreign films. She is also the author of TCM Imports, Backwards and in High Heels, Girls on Film, and The Female Gaze. And today we're discussing her new fantastic deck book, Film Fashion Icons, a deck and guidebook of style inspiration from classic Hollywood. Alicia, welcome back. Thanks. It's great to have you again so soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. This is such a treat to have two different projects, very different, to talk to you about within 1 year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as I said before we recorded, I love the book, and I think it's a perfect stocking stuffer for Christmas or any occasion because the photographs, the book, the little booklet you wrote inside, I really enjoyed it. So it's something to treasure for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly why I wanted to do it was something completely different from the books that I had written
Mm,
before and something that could be more of a gift rather
yes.
than a traditional book.
Hmm. And now, were you approached from Running Press to do this? Is that how
Yeah,
this got
they
going?
They did. They approached me with the idea of doing a deck, and I hadn't even considered that as a possibility before, but they explained what that would look like, how I would get to pick, choose the photos to go inside on the cards, and then also write a little guidebook that would go along with it. And I thought it was a really fun idea, and they suggested a couple of different things I could do, but one that stood out to me was fashion. I've always loved fashion, and in particular the way it works with film and classic film. But I would never want to write a full book on fashion because I'm not a fashion expert or a fashion historian myself. So I thought this guidebook would be a manageable way to do it. And I like to say it's like an analog version of Pinterest because
All right.
a lot of these photos I see on Pinterest as used as people's fashion inspiration for today. So I thought this could be like a more of an analog way of doing it.
Has classic Hollywood always been an influence on your own personal style?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always tried that, and there's been times when I have directly gone for that and worn a lot of vintage clothes. For a while, I was doing my hair like the 1950s and really trying to look like a Grace Kelly or Marilyn Monroe, from the 50s. But that took a lot of work and upkeep. So now I've gone more simple. But I've realized that I naturally am drawn to more classic styles. Ralph Lauren is my favorite
Mm,
designer, and if you look at his and his team's designs, they are very simple in the way that they're designed. It's nothing trendy, but it lasts the test of time because they
mm,
are simple and elegant, and often are very much related to classic films and classic film stars.
hmm. And it's interesting because as we know, so many of these stars had wardrobe. People, the studios
Hmm.
dressed them and turned them into stars based on how they how to Rita Hayworth comes to mind in particular,
Yes.
someone that they really transformed. Is anyone in this book, was anyone naturally who they were on screen in terms of fashion? Someone like Diane Keaton, who unfortunately just passed
Yeah,
away, comes to mind. Like, I know Woody Allen gave her a
absolutely.
lot of freedom to wear what she wanted to wear, and of course that became the way she's dressed with the shirt and tie and the hat. That's so her in real life.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else come to mind that was sort of naturally the way they dressed, or was a lot of it
Hmm.
by design?
Well, with that was the trickiest part of the book is how to acknowledge the work of costume designers when it
Yeah.
wasn't so clear how much of a say a lot of these stars had. Someone like Rita Hayworth, and I write about that in her chapter, is very much a product of the studios and a product of someone else's vision for her. And even though she dressed quite glamorously on screen, off screen, she preferred more comfortable clothing. But of course,
Right.
this being a time before social media and before a lot of tabloid photography, we didn't get to see much of what the stars look like in their own time. But one that comes to mind is Audrey Hepburn. She had
Mm,
a really strong influence on the way she looked, and maybe she didn't dress like that all the time herself, but she was very stylish and she had a good eye. So she was the one who approached Hébert de Givenchy for Sabrina to come up with some costumes for when her character Sabrina comes back from Paris and she's suddenly this glamorous woman. So she approached Givenchy. Edith Head was the costume designer on that film, but then from that point on, she worked with Givenchy very closely on and off the screen to design her costumes in all of her movies. And so she's one example of someone who had a very, very distinct vision of what she wanted to look like. Diane Keaton is another great example. I was so sad to
Yeah,
lose her
I know,
recently.
me too.
And she definitely was herself all the time. And
Mm,
that was something I truly admired about her in every way, including her fashion. And someone who worked with Ralph Lauren, who outfitted her for Annie Hall. She worked with the costume designer on that movie, but had the idea of what she wanted to look like. And it was
right.
how she dressed in regular life too. And only Diane Keaton could pull off some of the outfits that she wore, but they were so distinctly her that she gives me inspiration for
Yeah.
that reason of just being completely yourself and not being afraid of being yourself. Yeah, being who you are.
Yeah, certainly. Did you ever meet her over the years?
I did.
Oh,
I
you
got to
did.
interview her at a couple of press junkets. So they were very short interviews,
Okay.
3 to 4 minutes long. I can't even remember what the film was, but I remember that she was just exactly the way you wanted her to be. She was quirky and funny and laughing and having a good time. Again, I can't remember the film, but I remember her bringing up the idea that she and I should have tantric sex. I was like, how did that happen? And it just somehow was so charming coming out of her mouth. And she just made me laugh. And
Yeah,
she is someone who is truly missed. I'm
for
glad that
sure.
people are celebrating all of her incredible work right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I once saw her at TIFF here in Toronto just from a distance, but as soon as I saw the hat, I
You
knew who it
knew.
was.
Yeah, she was so wonderful and such a light in Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely. One of a film that she's in, which only you know this for sure, that only just recently came out on Blu-ray. Looking for Mr. Goodbar is
Oh gosh,
a film I
devastating.
love. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I love it, and it's actually one of my most popular videos. And people argue
yeah.
about it in the comments
Oh my
constantly because
gosh,
there's
yeah.
people have so many various points of views about whether it's harmful or a film or offensive or not offensive or what. And it's really interesting
Hmm.
to me.
I know that is a fascinating film, and it's one that delivers like unexpectedly a gut punch. You don't
Oh
know when
yeah,
you're going into the film how it's going to end, and her
yes,
performance just
yeah.
grounds that whole journey that her character goes through. It's awful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I know. I know. I'm so glad it was finally restored and put out on Blu-ray because, as you know, for
Me too.
years you could only see, um, you know, not terrible quality, but not great quality VHS prints, or it was on YouTube.
Hmm.
And but yeah, the new restored version is really really nice. The does any costume designers show up more than others in this book? Edith Head, you mentioned. Did you
Edith
notice
Head.
there was a trend
Yeah.
in the costume designers
Definitely
that you're
Edith
picking?
Head and Irene Sharaf. They're the two
Mm,
that come up the most, mainly because Edith Head, worked a lot at Paramount and MGM and worked with these big stars who became real fashion icons like Grace Kelly, and working with Helen Rose is another one who worked a lot at MGM. Irene Sharaf worked with Elizabeth Taylor and created some really interesting modern costumes for her. Those are the ones. And of course, back in the studio system, there were heads of departments that worked across all of the films and were very influential on the look of all the films. So I definitely wanted to make sure that throughout the guidebook and the photos where I could credit the costume designer. Sometimes it was unclear who made the costumes, particularly for the earlier films, silent films, but I really wanted to highlight them wherever I could because they were very, very important to the look of these stars.
yeah, absolutely. Did I understand now? Of course, there's. I'm sure there are people that you couldn't fit into the book that you wanted
Yeah.
to. I understand Ava Gardner was someone.
Yeah, Ava
Uh,
Gardner,
yeah.
Eartha Kitt as well,
Oh
which
yeah.
she was a fascinating figure in
Yes.
terms of her fashion. It was tough because I only had a limited number that I could include. And so I really had to look at it and try to see, make sure that there was a diverse range of stories involved. So it wasn't only highlighting the good parts of fashion, I was also highlighting people like Carmen Miranda, who had a great influence and, of course, had such an iconic figure with her tutti frutti hat, but also the stereotypes that she was placed under, everything that they were fighting against. So I just wanted to make sure I had a broad range of people involved and a broad range of eras as well. I could have probably done it all in the 1940s and 50s because there were so many
Yes.
glamorous men and women during that time, but I wanted to make sure I included also the 1970s.
Well, it's funny because as I was going through the book, I always somewhat knew, but you may notice I have somewhat of a vintage look. My hair is
Yeah,
like,
which I like.
is consciously always been modeled on either James Dean or Brando.
Yes,
And
exactly.
going through it, I was like, it's so interesting with Dean and Brando, like how the white T-shirt at the time was such a
Yeah.
threat and was so rebellious because no one did that white t-shirt and jeans, and all of a sudden these two guys are wearing white t-shirt and jeans, and now everybody wears that, but it was really dangerous to do
It
that.
was. I mean,
So
stepping
yeah,
away from the traditional suit and being a very like casual figures, but also doing this little guidebook made me realize that it's not actually the trends that last. It is these very classic items. Like you think about the white t-shirt and jeans, and that's you could wear any of James Dean's outfits today and you would still look cool. It would still work. It would still feel modern. And it's those really simple pieces that last
yeah,
the test of time.
right.
Also, someone like Cary Grant, who has always been a fashion icon, particularly for men, but I even take inspiration from his outfits on the cruise. I always want to look like Cary Grant on a cruise, wearing a white suit and a stripy top and maybe a little necktie. And he liked very simple outfits and made sure that they're well tailored, both on and off the screen.
Yeah.
But it just shows you that those kind of like simple pieces really do last rather than trying to slavishly follow trends. I think we're always told that you need to, if you're going to be well dressed, you need to really push the boundaries or try something new. But
Mhm.
actually, a lot of these icons, including Audrey Hepburn with her little black dress, were very simple.
That's true. Yeah. Even if I'm just looking at the cover, like someone like also Marlene Dietrich at the time
Yeah,
wearing a suit, a tux,
tuxedo.
like that was, even now when women do that, they get, unfortunately, people will criticize it or, say it's too masculine
Mhm.
looking. And to think in the 20s and 30s, she was doing that and just doing it with, unapologetically, which, which I
Yes,
love.
she's so brave, and she had such an androgynous look, and she was
Yeah.
also someone who understood the power of fashion. She knew that the tuxedo would shock people. She also was an early adopter of Christian Dior, and
Yeah.
for Alfred Hitchcock's film Stage Fright, she told him no Dior, no Dietrich, because she was
Mm.
determined to wear some of his new look pieces, which are now very iconic, but she saw right away that they would work for her character. So I love her, and you always see pictures of her in the tuxedo popping up everywhere, all over Pinterest, all over, social
Yes.
media of people still being amazed that she was wearing that in the 1930s and
Hmm.
kissing a woman in Morocco. I mean, she was
Yes.
very brave. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so you had mentioned earlier you were very involved in which pictures to choose for the book.
Yeah, I
Was it
chose all the pictures
okay?
myself. I had obviously just a limited amount to work from. We were given access to a certain number of photos. So, someone like Fred Astaire, I just had a couple of Fred Astaire pictures to choose from, but I tried my best to choose one that was mostly related to what I was talking about in the guidebook or would most capture what I think made this particular person a fashion film icon. And that was the fun part, getting to choose all the pictures.
Mm. Oh, I can imagine. How
Yeah.
long did you work on the book? Oh,
A couple of months. It was easy in terms of the writing, although also a challenge because I only had about 100 to 150 words to
ah,
try to capture everything in once. So I had to be very simple in my writing and sort of pare it down Normally I would be able to write much more than that. I write much more than that for my TCM intro scripts.
Right.
And then a little while to go through all the edits and then to go through the design process. That was much more involved than with a book because you had to pick out all the colors for the deck and all of the colors for the guidebook and the way it would look and how big the cards would be. So I was very involved with it all. And I really liked that we stuck with choosing black and white photos because even though you wish you could see some of these outfits in color, we never saw them in color. So I wanted to make sure that they were representative of what we saw on screen for most of them. Yeah.
Is it more challenging when you only can write so many words?
Yeah, it can
yeah,
be. It can be more challenging because you have to sort of pare it down to one simple idea.
right.
And sometimes people are very complex and you wish you had more nuance, but you only have a limited amount of space. So I tried for every single star to think about what their inspiration would be, what kind of inspiration you could take from them as a fashion film icon, and then just write with that only in mind. So that was hard, but it was a fun challenge. Try and pare it down.
And now you know I know you know so much about these stars already and their history. But did you was there did when you were writing about each person, was there a lot of research involved as well and then having to pair it, because I'd imagine that was challenging because you're probably reading so much about
Yeah.
Fred Astaire, and then you could only say so much, or did you limit your research?
Exactly. Yeah, I had to cut myself off at times because I love research, so I could research forever. But as I was researching more and more, I was finding more that I wanted to write about the stars. So it was a balance of trying to research enough to make sure that I was covering all the facts and getting everything correct, choosing a couple of different sources for each fact that I had, but also at the same time, keeping it simple because I only had a limited number of words. But even though I know these stars really well, it was fun and interesting to think about them purely from a fashion sense rather than the way that I would talk about them on TCM as actors.
Right.
And, things like talking about Cab Calloway and his zoot suit and how that was quite a statement at the time for black and brown people to wear these oversized suits and really stand out rather than trying to shrink in. That was really interesting for me. I love Josephine Baker. So we've written, of course, with TCM about how she helped the French resistance during the war, but also just thinking about the banana dress that she wore and how provocative that was on the stage in France. And then I sent the list to a lot of my friends who are genuine fashion experts.
Oh.
Risa Britannia is a fashion historian in New York who teaches fashion and film specifically.
Oh.
And she's become a friend over the years. She's appeared on TCM. She was helpful to me during Follow the Thread, the series we did on TCM, where she helped out with research. So I said, do you mind if I send you my list and you can tell me, like, who am I missing? Who shouldn't I include? Just get her thoughts. And she came back with interesting ideas, such as Irene Castle, who was a dancer, but actually very influential in the fashion world. And people followed her trends, like her bob and her headpiece that she wore. So, Risa said, I think you should really include Irene Castle. And that gave me a great idea and someone new that I hadn't thought of.
I see. And
Yeah.
now you're, look, just of course we know that you do TCM imports on TCM, and of course your last book, TCM imports, all about foreign cinema. If you had to do a foreign version of this book, are there just a
Oh,
few people who
yeah.
come to mind that you would include in a deck book?
Yeah, someone like Alain Delon, the
Oh,
French
for
actor,
sure, yeah.
who was, yeah, so suave and handsome. And you watch him in Purple Noon, where he is the hideous character of Mr. Ripley, but looks so good in everything that he wore. Very, very
Yes,
elegant.
absolutely.
I'd also include like Jean Seberg from
Yeah.
Breathless. You think about her Herald Tribune t-shirt
Yes,
that
I
she
love
wore,
that.
and that became a trend. And
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the Richard Linklater
Yeah, me too.
film that's coming out. I'm
Yeah,
like, that
I
looks like
can't
it's
wait.
designed just for me and not many other people, but I am in. So a lot of the French stars, particularly during the French New Wave,
Yeah,
Italian stars as well. I mean, I think you could definitely do it. Sophia Loren. I mean, there's
for
so
sure.
many. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Just wait, Robert.
Yes, yes.
We could do one.
As a follow up,
Yeah.
I love I think Godard and Pasolini. Just you can see my similar
The
glasses.
glasses.
This is my
Yeah.
inspiration from them. The tinted glasses. I mean,
I
just that
love that.
alone.
Yeah, Anna Karina. I mean, so many of the
So
French
many.
New Wave stars were like you watch their films now and you say, I want that outfit because it's just
Yeah.
simple, well made, classic, and timeless.
And it's something that I'm only learning in the last year is I read a book on Gloria Swanson and people like
Hmm.
who is included in the deck book and people went to not maybe not all the movies but a number of her movies just to see what she was wearing, which I didn't know
Yes.
that they market
Yeah.
it that way. And even Joan Crawford, intentionally sold
Sold
things
dresses.
that she
Yes.
was wearing. I'm fascinated by that, how much the fashion influenced the movies and how people went to movies partly for fashion.
Hmm.
Does that is that something that was done? Do you know, as a historian, was that done often, or is it was that just were they just the exception? People like
I think
Swanson
they
and
were,
Crawford,
yeah, I think they were the exception when they had a big following like that, that
right?
they knew that women would go to the theater and then go straight to the department store and buy their outfits. But it's something that is still happening today. I mean, I think of Kristen Stewart, who has been, she works with Chanel on a lot of her movies and off camera as well, wears Chanel. And so a lot of these kind of
That's true.
this idea of fashion and film influencing each other has been
Mm,
around since the beginning and it continues today. A lot of brands now, stars are,
that's
signed to a
true. Yeah.
brand and they really do help sell product.
Yeah, that's a good point. Um, I'm sure they're all your favorites, but just are there just a couple off the top of your head that are your absolute favorites in the book? That might be hard to answer,
Yeah,
but
well, Diane Keaton definitely is
yeah.
one because I just love her spirit and the way she put outfits together. Katherine Hepburn is definitely an
Oh
inspiration
yeah.
for myself. I
Yeah.
think I like Diane Keaton and Katherine Hepburn because I've always liked menswear for women. And Hepburn is a great inspiration when it comes to wearing the pants, literally
Yeah.
and figuratively. And that
Yes.
was something she really had to fight for, is to be able to wear those pants because it was not very feminine at the time. I love that. I mean, I wish I could look like Grace Kelly all the time. It's in, To Catch a Thief and Rear
Mm.
Window are some of my favorites. And then I also love Billy D. Williams. He was a guy that I included who, in the 70s, he was called the Black Cary Grant, but he really had his own style. And he,
Yeah.
of course, was in Star Wars, Lando Calrissian wearing the cape, and he pulls that off with aplomb. And I got to interview him at the TCM Film Festival last
Oh
year.
wow.
And I can't remember how old he is exactly now, but he's still got it. He's still very suave and very
Oh
fashionable in what
great.
he's wearing. I think anyone that manages to be completely comfortable in their own skin and wear exactly what they want to wear and not what society tells them to wear
Mm.
is always inspirational to me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, he's a great actor.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed his performances. Last question I had is just one or two things that you want people to take away from the book.
I would say that the idea of simplicity being timeless,
Mm.
especially as we live in this world where there are algorithms telling us all the time to buy this or buy that, really you don't have to follow the trends in order to be fashionable. And the second one, as hard as it is try to be yourself completely. I mean, that's the simplest and the hardest advice in the world, but that's something I hope people take from Diane Keaton, is just how powerful it can be when you are truly being yourself and you're like no one else, so you shouldn't try to look like anyone else.
Well said. Well said. Well, again, the book is called Film Fashion Icons, a deck and guidebook of style inspiration from classic Hollywood. If people want to get the book, Alicia, where would you suggest they go?
Um, I think it's sold all around. I hate advertising Amazon, but that's
Yeah,
probably the easiest,
that's why I always
unfortunately.
ask, because I always ask guests, because
I know.
I
I
know
wonder
people.
if it is stocked in indie bookshops. I would say try look for it elsewhere first, and if you can't, and we also, of course, sell it anytime there is a TCM gift shop at the cruise or the film festival. It'll always be available there.
Great, fantastic.
And I
Well,
realized I should have worn something more fashionable than my cardigan and my t-shirt, but this is
no,
comfortable, so
that's very breathless, like with the stripes, with the
exactly. I love
very
stripes.
Gene. Yeah, me too. Very Gene
Yeah,
Seberg like. So you got a hint of something there.
that's right.
Well, I highly recommend people get this wonderful deck book. It's a great stocking stuff for a Christmas gift or just a gift in general. Highly recommend get, or just if you're looking for fashion inspiration, for any time. So, Alicia, thank you again. This is great to have you back, and I hope
Thank
you
you.
come again sometime down the road.
Yeah, I'm writing another book right now, so maybe I'll talk to you in
Oh,
another year.
good. All right.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, and thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. You can also leave a donation or what I call a tip by clicking the thanks link, which you will find directly below the video frame. Just click on that and you can leave a donation if you choose to. Of course, I would greatly appreciate that. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It is absolutely free to do so. By pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movie logo, you will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left. In just a second, just click on that. And then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new videos. I would also really appreciate if you leave a comment, share the video, like the video. All of these things create traction onto my YouTube channel and really help share the video far and wide and the channel in general. So thank you so much for doing that, and I will see you all in the next one.